Lydia Donelan from MMA Connect TV. It's a pleasure to have you to my new format that I haven't quite given a name to yet.
Yeah, what's the name? Thank you very much.
I'll have to call it, like, I don't know, creative TV or something.
Yeah.
So I started up Irish Startup TV to do interviews with startup founders, but then I discovered that there's a whole lot of creators in Ireland, and you're my first Irish creator to interview, so I wanted
It's
to
an honour.
find out more about who you are.
Yeah.
So tell us about MMA Connect TV.
Yeah, so MMA Connect TV is a year old, just over a year old, and I started the company from working with European mixed martial arts promotion called BAMA. So basically I still do work as part of their press team. And when I was working there, I was like, there was so much life and activity that was going on behind the scenes that nobody was really capturing. Like the fighters, like getting ready to fight, the preparation that goes into it, all the kind of production that goes into putting a show on. And I was like, God, this is amazing. Someone should like do something at shows, to show the fans what goes on, because there was nothing. All you had was your your sort of post-fight interview that were very serious, or kind of like news, like proper sports.
So let's give us a context.
journalism.
So, rather terribly, some people will talk about cage fighting.
Yes, what
So
a terrible
tell
term
us,
for mixed martial arts.
Firstly, what is mixed martial arts?
Mixed martial arts is MMA. It's what Conor McGregor does. So that's when people say, what is MMA? You just say Conor McGregor, and then they're like, oh, okay. So it's basically all these different forms of martial arts: judo, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, Muay Thai, striking, grappling, and it's basically the 360 of combat sports. So you're incorporating everything into this 15-minute fight or 25-minute fight, whatever the real set is.
You did a great interview with Conor last year, and I
wouldn't
started
say
calling
it's
him Conor now.
I wouldn't say it's a great interview.
With Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I done an interview with Conor.
Well, specifically, the question around the interview was that you made that. I think it was a great interview because you asked the question, like, Conor kind of arguably is the face of MMA.
Yeah.
And like MMA was traditionally like lads scrapping in sheds, effectively.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, when it started, when we say that, people fighting out of sheds, it was just because the facilities weren't there.
Okay.
So they had no choice. It was very kind of homegrown. People were putting gyms together. John Kavanagh from SPG will say that when he started out, he was in a shed. You know what I mean? So, I think that's where the sport originated, and it is a very new sport. But yeah, Conor is the face, and he is wholeheartedly responsible for where we're at today with MMA. Without him,
it's an incredible thing, that the energy that he has and the confidence that he has, and it's kind of seems to spur in the whole industry.
Yeah, of course, and I think a lot of people, obviously a lot of people buy into his character and the way that he is and that whole kind of the entertainment side of it. But it is entertainment. He's not like that.
I had a lunch, it was a rugby club dinner, and I had a surgeon sitting beside me, and he said MMA is just an act. Now, I know a little bit more because I have some friends involved, but you're an expert. Is it all
I would say I'm an expert.
Well,
I'm a fan that...
You're very modest, but you're out there, you go to all the fights.
Yeah,
so when we talk about entertainment, the first thing that springs into my head is WWE.
Yeah, of course.
So what is it? Is it real? Like, are they properly knocking each other out?
MMA is 100% real. The sport of MMA is 100% real. The entertainment factor comes from the promotions. So the same way you have the Premier League in football, and you have, I can't think on the spot of other promotions and other sports. But
boxing is another
boxing,
great example.
Come on, like boxing is the biggest, in combat sport, like the entertainment element.
If you think about Muhammad Ali, you see shades of that confidence in McGregor,
yeah, exactly.
but he can deliver as well.
Exactly, and I'm sure Conor, has taken a lot of inspiration from him and the way that he, went about his career as well, for his own. But unfortunately, that's what sells tickets, and that's what puts bums on seats at the UFC. So it's a $1 billion industry,
right.
And you have to, these fighters, when they sign for the UFC, they have to play the game.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? But the actual sport of MMA is
real.
Very real, and it's a very positive sport, and it helps a lot of people. And that's what I do with MMA Connect TV. Yeah, we interview, big fighters, big names when we can, but my passion and what I want to capture is grassroots MMA in Ireland. You know, the kids that are starting out, that are, you know, it's helping them through bullying, it's helping them through difficult times at home, it's giving them focus. Exactly, do you know what I mean? So that's why I go out and do what I do, you know.
So let's track back a bit. So we're talking about almost the rise of MMA from lads fighting in sheds because there weren't any facilities to, you know, guys now making serious dollars out of it.
Yeah.
But concurrently also the technology has improved. Like Facebook last year, we're talking about the jump from text to visual and visual to video.
Yeah.
And now everyone is doing videos, arguably. And if you're not doing videos, you're crazy. You're going to get left behind. But how did that fit in then with what you were up to? What was it that you saw this technology emerging, or how did you decide that you were going to start to do videos, and then how did that evolve to a format?
Honestly, the success of what I contribute to the success to MMA Connect TV down to is because I'm a fan first and foremost of obviously of MMA, but of the internet, of technology, of you know, social media and how you use social for publicity or for promoting or a platform for yourself or for your company or your business. And the biggest positive that I hear back from kind of fans of MMA Connect TV is that you cover everything. They know that they can come follow me on my social channels or our social channels, and they'll get all the information, they'll get exclusives, they'll get backstage videos, they'll get something that they won't get from another media outlet. And that's literally just because I'm such a fan of, you know, I'm always on my phone. If you see me at shows, I'm constantly taking videos, I'm constantly Snapchatting, live videos, talking to people, getting all these little bits and pieces and putting them together for our content. And I do that because that's what I want to see. So it's kind of selfish in a way. I don't really think about the viewer. I kind of think about what would I want to see
if you were a fan.
If I was a fan, if I couldn't get to a show, well, I'd want to see the results. I'd want to see everyone warming up. I'd want to see the fighters before they fight, after they fight, the reactions, the passion, the tears, you know. It's like that's for me why I do it, you know.
Amazing. And does anyone else cover MMA in Ireland?
There's loads, yeah. There's KO Media, there's Fight Store Ireland, obviously Fight Talk. I'm on the spot, I'm trying to remember everyone, okay. But there's loads, you know.
I'm kind of setting the scene for the context. So like for me, to be honest, my only real touch point with MMA is through Ben Forsyth.
Yeah.
But apart from through Ben, I don't know an awful lot. It's only through Ben that I'm learning. So I'm guessing there's possibly other people watching the video and they're saying, you know, it's cool. At the end of the day, you've created a really nice little product around something you're passionate about.
Absolutely. And it's like, I mean, it's so young. It's like a year old, and I'm learning as I'm going along. I'm making mistakes. I'm definitely making mistakes as I'm going along, you know, and how to run a business and have, you know, people work for you, and, you know, the content that we put out, and like even stuff like there's a lot of stuff that because I'm at the shows and I cover so much and I get access to a lot of fighters and a lot of things that happen behind the scenes, I get to I get to capture a lot of stuff that I can't put out there for whatever reason. You know, maybe it's somebody has been super upset after a loss, or, you know.
So how do you manage that then? How is that a kind of thing you almost self-regulate?
Yeah, I do. I try and put myself in the fighters.
To step back for a second, I mentioned the word expert earlier. You do have a domain expertise, but if understood correctly, you have some form in the ring yourself.
Yeah, I really don't like the word expert being used.
Okay, but to reframe
like
it,
an expert.
I suppose, look, you know,
I'm constantly learning, so
coming from a technology space, we kind of think of things in terms of domain expertise, where, you know, somebody has an area really wired. So what I'm kind of getting at is, like, you were a fighter yourself.
Yeah, so I my brother has always fought, so boxing and martial arts has always been in my family. From him, I've always known it, but I never took that much of an interest in it. It was only kind of until I got a little bit older where I was like, you know, became a fan of it. And then I started jiu-jitsu, and I didn't start for any other reason but just to get fit. And because I had been in music for like 10 years. I was in a band, I sang.
Oh, really?
I left that band and had came off of pretty much being on tour for about 6 years straight.
Oh, right. So what kind of a band was it?
It was a rock and roll band.
Really?
Yeah. Right. So I was a singer. There was 5 of us. We were called Sweet Jane, and we were signed to Weakest Records in Ireland and Warner Music in Asia. So, we released, you know, one album and a couple of singles and stuff over the years. So that's what I've done for like 6 years, and then we broke up, and I kind of was like, you know, I hit 30 and I was like, I need to, like, my life is over, my band is gone, everything that I knew was gone. And I just started jiu-jitsu just as a way to do something to like keep me focused, start something new.
So you didn't do it as a child?
No. I did not do any sport as a child.
Really?
I think, oh my god, are you kidding? No way.
way.
I was creative. I was always creative, music and, you know, kind of entertainment and stuff. But yeah, never anything sport. And my brother was super sporty, so my dad was like, you know, he was the sport one. I was the like creative one or whatever. But I started jiu-jitsu and I fell in love with it. I ended up training every single day, lost loads of weight, you know, like it changed my mind, my perspective, how I viewed life. I kind of went from being a completely negative person to just being 360 into positive.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
Mental health is such a big issue in Ireland at the moment, and I think it's for me certainly I'd say that the focus around sport is really important. Like, would you want to talk a little bit more about how?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't want to give like the music industry a bad rap, because everyone is responsible for their own self. But the toll of being on tour and the lifestyle that the music industry encourages, or that you can kind of get sucked into, is not very healthy. Drinking all the, so if you think about when you go on tour, okay, so you do like, we'll say a 6-week tour, and you're flying to different cities, you're on buses, you're in hotels, you're not eating properly. You know, you go to do a show. When you go to do a show, you start drinking before the show, and then afterwards you're drinking again because there's an after party, and you're going to all these different cities and you're meeting up with people that you haven't seen for a year or 2 years, and they want to party with you because they haven't seen you and they've been to see your show, and you do that for, you know,
Yeah, you're also
7 months of the year.
You're a salesperson as well, so you kind of have to do that, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and you have managers and record labels that want to encourage it, and by the end of it, our music was like a cross between Oasis and Fleetwood Mac, and we became so much
Lots of
like
drugs and fighting.
We actually became Fleetwood Mac towards the end. It was so like at the last tour, that proper tour that we done was in Singapore, and it was when we were like at the very end of our tether. And I was a terrible person. I was such a spoiled brat, you know, because I was just, there was the relationships that were in the band were falling apart, and you know, you're young and you don't know how to deal with the emotions. You're fighting with people that you love so much. You spent years with them in their pocket, sharing. Like, to write music with someone is so personal. You know what I mean? It's your deepest, darkest thoughts and fears and hopes and dreams that you're sharing with someone else, and you can be very exposed. And then when you start, you know, when the relationship split down within the band, and you still have to go out and
It's
tour
like a
with
family
them.
almost.
Yeah, exactly. And you still have to tour with them. And you know, you wake up in the morning and you say, I just want the day off, and I don't want to have to play a show, and I don't want to do anything. And you have to.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure, but that was, we were in such a lucky position. I was in such a lucky position, and I was in a position that I had wanted to be in my entire life. That's all I wanted to do, was be in a band and to sing.
What changed? Like, what was there a kind of a tipping point that you kind of felt this wasn't really working out for you anymore?
There's so many different variables that go into it. You're not, the more successful you get, the more people get involved in how your career should go. You then don't have, the more money they put into you, the less of an opinion or the less control you have.
Yeah, like arguably a lot of music these days it's a product.
Yeah, it's a product, and you know, our record label wanted us to be marketed in a particular way, and they encouraged us to be that way, and it was kind of this dark, moody, you know, sort of like Jesus and Mary chain, like from the like dark sort of rock and roll, moody, you know, it was a whole kind of like marketing thing, and I was just really sad towards the end of it. You know, the people that I started the band with, we didn't have a good relationship anymore, and nobody really wanted to do it. We just needed a break, I suppose. I know it's hard. It's hard
almost
to talk
like the
about
business, kind of. I don't want to push it if it's.
No. It's easy for me to talk about it. It's hard for me to talk about it, because you're talking about like so many other people, and they're what I don't want to talk for them. Basically,
Yeah, no,
you know?
I suppose to to look at it from a slightly different perspective, like when I was a kid, I happened to know Joe Elliott from Def Leppard.
Yeah,
And like,
cool.
It's so random.
So
Yeah,
cool.
hey Joe.
Hey Joe.
But you know, they had, like, Def Leppard had an incredible history. Like, they were produced by the same guys. I think it was Mutt Lang from AC/DC.
Yeah.
But like, Rick ended up losing an arm, like going out through a window of a car, and like they managed to keep the band together, and like they kept him as a drummer. It was incredible. Like, he had to learn how to drum with his feet and with one hand.
Yeah, he's such
And
a
then,
badass.
yeah, it's incredible. But some guys were lost to drugs. But you know, at 50, like, Joe was still lapping around the place. And it's, you know, really, it's incredible that they stayed together.
Yeah.
And then again, Joe used to do runs up the mountains and that, you know, I guess it was the fitness and the focus that kept him going. So to bring that back to your own story, that it's not easy, and today as well there's all the more pressure because you can't sell records as easily, although records are coming back. But I guess, long story short, you're in this kind of position whereby you're a brand that's being pushed in a direction. You started it probably out of love and passion, and then it sounds like it can just go really messy.
Yeah, of course, and everyone that's in the band has a different vision of where they wanted to go, and egos get involved, money gets involved. You know, it happens. It's the most age-old story in rock and roll. You know, bands break up and no one has a reason to how you can prevent that. I suppose group therapy.
Yeah.
Like Metallica.
Well, chats like this as well.
Do you know what I mean? Or chats like this. You know, it's really, like, it's good to look back on it. You know, and I have fond memories. I try to think of the good times. You know, and I was so blessed and so lucky to experience
Seeing the world
that.
must have been awesome.
Yeah, it was. You know what I mean? Like, getting to travel. And, you know, I don't like to regret anything in my life because I believe that everything happens for a reason, and I believe.
Well, if you can convert that reason into future outcome, I think is
right, exactly right. But yeah, you know, like, I kind of think, God, if I had been a little bit more understanding, or like, you know, less, just maybe worked a little bit harder and didn't let sweat the small stuff, maybe where would we be now?
So what advice would you have for creators? Because just to set more of a context for the viewers, so I created this platform, Irish Startup TV, so a bit like yourself, although I'm also uncomfortable using terms like experts, but the best way to describe it is I was a domain expert in the startup space. Yeah. And I literally had access to incredible people, and I started doing these little iPhone videos. Yeah. And I kind of built it out from there. But throughout that experience, I started meeting other creators, and my new YouTube channel, which is literally just my name, youtube.com/RichardDonelan.
Check it out.
Check it out. And the whole point of it is to be more creative myself, but also to meet people like yourself, because I've never met you before. We met through the internet. After we did the video with Ben, it kind of went viral. I found out he
wasn't a creep.
Just saying, check out benforsyth.com as well. And literally, you know, it's cool to meet other creators and to share their stories, and I purposely asked you to sit on the opposite side. So
this is my good side.
So tonight Lydia is being interviewed rather than
being the interviewer.
Interviewer. So what kind of advice would you have for other creators? Maybe somebody that's saying, I have a passion about something I want to create. What are the first steps? Is it get a niche? What do you do?
Well, I actually get asked this quite a lot, because my Snapchat, Lydia Donelan, for anyone that doesn't follow me in there,
check it.
I do, like, I cover lots of stuff on my Snapchat, and I do Q&As and stuff like that. They kind of get me in trouble a lot, but you know, when I'm covering the shows and stuff, I cover a lot on my Snapchat so that people have, like, a live feed. But when I'm doing the Q&As, the questions I get the whole time is, you know, I really want to get into MMA journalism, or I really want to get into...
Is that a thing now?
Yeah, of course.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How long, just to kind of divert for a second, how long has MMA been around? Like, it's not...
As a sport?
Yeah, or maybe as a kind of a sport, and then as a really popular thing. Give us the timeline. Like,
MMA as a sport started, like, back in the 90s, and it was kind of like back in a day where it wasn't a sport, so there used to be these kind of like show, like, for anyone, how to explain it, like, where these challenges where someone that done jiu-jitsu would go in against someone who was like a boxer, and they'd say, you know, jiu-jitsu is the leading combat sport, you know, and I can take anyone out, boxer, striker, and they go in and fight, you know. You guys that are in like a kimono, a gi kimono, with like one boxing glove, you know, you
like
the Gracies and stuff, like, you know what I mean?
fights Mayweather.
Exactly, so it's all that thing. So that's kind of how it originated, and the sport obviously formulated and from that, you know, over. But the 90s is like the other day, you know, so it is a very new sport. But I think it was really up until really when Connor, you know, I know it's sort of
So
like
like
disrespectful to the
2013
other
or-
pre-UFC fighters, but really Connor, that's when the sport exploded. He was
So-
able to be a voice for, you know, a direct voice between like the sport, the UFC, and like the
And
kids, you know.
he understood. He was watching an amazing video with him where like he sticks a pen in his mouth and he's teaching him how to enunciate clearer, and he really
Yeah.
understood the communication and the branding part of it. So when
Yeah.
like I suppose, look, in my head, I'm just gonna like act for the person here who maybe isn't so familiar with MMA. Maybe 2013 was when I first heard about it. So am I early? Am I late?
For a new fan, you're right on time.
Okay.
For someone who would be like, you know, I'm
Die
diehard fan. I've been a fan of the sport from day one. You were a bit late.
Okay.
But I think those diehard fans, you know,
Yeah,
fair play
yeah.
to you for being there from day one. You know, great. But the sport is growing. So I think when the new kids come along and say, you know, oh, it was 2013. I went to my first show or whatever, then that should just be like deadly. Now you're, you know, now you're hooked, and now you're gonna love this sport like we all do. You know?
And that's exactly the context I was trying to paint that picture. So that for me, if someone is saying I want to be an MMA journalist, like when I was a kid, you became a lawyer, you became an accountant.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you aspire to becoming an
Yeah.
astronaut or a footballer.
I mean, I don't see why they should not aspire to it. You know, it's a great career. I don't know if there's a lot of money in it just yet, but I mean, there's definitely a lot to cover in the sport, and there's room for everyone. You know, because there's not a lot of, especially in Ireland. What I would say is that when I started, and I was like, you know, because I had done interviews like this from the music, I was like, I'm used to being in front of the camera. So
you've been on the interviewee. I never get
yeah,
the word
interviewee.
right.
So I was used to being interviewed, and I was like, I'm okay in front of a camera. I don't freak out, you know, or like get weird when the camera's in my face. I was used to it, so I was like, I know I can use what I know and help, or you know, grow it in the other way and be on the other side of the camera. So I was like, who is there? And I remember I sat down and had a meeting with Claire O'Mahony from Fight Star Ireland, and I was like, they were doing post-fight interviews, but they were very much kind of like serious, talking about the technique, you know, the fight on the night. I wanted to do something more entertainment, something that, you know, eventually where I want MMA Connect TV to go was TV. You know, I wanted it to be a TV show. So I have that entertainment
You have to make
thing.
it broader.
Exactly, so it has to be, the whole concept was that I wanted someone that knew nothing about MMA to sit down and to watch, because you know, it was the story of the fighter, then MMA as a sport, but then hopefully that will lead them on to MMA. But
so that question then, just to go back to that, if you have advice for young creators, it's I suppose maybe it's a slightly loaded question in that there's a lot of journalism groups on Facebook, for argument's sake, and I try to learn, because I'm new to this whole creator space. Like, I don't have a history or background in journalism.
Yeah, me either. I have no media
but
background.
I think there is the challenge that, like, it's very difficult to break into journalism, and it's very difficult to make money out of journalism. And my feeling on it is you just got to hit that upload button and keep creating.
Yes.
That'd be my top tip, but I'd love to hear from your perspective. What's like one bit of advice you give?
Well, that's exactly it. Just going back to when I went for that meeting with Claire, who owns Fight Star Ireland, who is their media source over here, and I was like, you know, I'd really like to do interviews. You know, is there anything that you can do with me? And she was like, we had just gotten a new presenter, Shane Kirkwood, is a guy who does martial arts, and he's like a model and stuff. Looks great. He's a big beard, like he looks great on camera. They were like, we've just gotten him, so he's going to do them, maybe something in the future. And I was like, damn. I was like, okay, cool. And I went back and I was like, I could just do it myself. I was
Amazing.
like, let's just do it. What's going to stop me?
How did you start?
It's so weird. When I decided, I was like, okay, I'm going to go do this. I was like, I kind of wanted like a big name for like the first interview. So I was like, who do I know that could be like a big name? So I was like, Artem Lobov. And we were friends. And I texted him and I was like, look, I'm thinking about doing this new show, this MMA show, and I'd really love if you could like do the interview with me. You know, I don't know how it's going to go down, I don't know anything, but I'd really love if I could interview. And he was just like brilliant. He's such a nice guy. He was just like, of course, no problem at all. When do you want to do it? And I was like, Sunday. And then he was like, perfect. He was like, perfect, no problem. He was like, where do you want to do it? And then I got in touch with a friend of mine who runs the Workmen's Club.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously I know her because of like the music, and we'd played there a couple of times. I was like, listen, I'm starting to do this like MMA TV show, and I wanted to interview this UFC fighter called Art and Love. Can I use the venue? And she was like, yeah, of course, no problem at all. So we went down, and like it was just myself and Carl, our cameraman, and I had like books and books of like questions and like stuff about like his career, like what he ate for breakfast in 1982, like they were ridiculous. And then like I sat down, and I was like, you know, so stiff, and I was like, Artem, hi, thank you for doing the interview. It was just the worst, like I was so nervous. And then I kind of halfway through the interview, I kind of just forgot the questions, and we were just kind of like talking and having a bit of banter.
Well, I think that's great advice on its own. Is be natural and treat it like a conversation.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
So many, I meet so many startuppers, and they're trying to pitch, and I'm like, hang on, just forget the pitch.
Yeah,
tell
just
me
be
a human
honest.
story.
Yeah,
if we met in the bar and you know we had a few drinks, what would you tell me? I don't think you'd start giving me your ROI and your whatever. You know, you'd say we make cool things.
Yeah, you just give it straight up. So that's the kind of, we done that, and then my cameraman Carl was like, oh, you didn't stick to the questions, and you should have gone and asked him about the last fight leading up to this. And I was like, I don't want to. I was like, I'm not interested in that. Like, you know, I'm interested in finding out about him and his story, and like, you know. So we done that. We put it online, and I think it got like 7,000 views, and
really?
Like, it was really, now that has a lot to do with him because he's got a big following.
Yeah, actually, so that's really good advice for creators as well. Like when Ben and I did the video with the White Moose Cafe, like they'd already had a huge following.
Exactly.
But our video still has done double any video before or after, so we know that there's something that we added value to too. So we shouldn't underestimate ourselves. But great advice for creators is collaborate.
Absolutely, and you know, and I have to say thank you so much to Artem, because he gave up his afternoon. You know, he didn't have to do that, and so always forever grateful.
It's very much a Californian thing, but it's happening more and more in Ireland. I think historically we had a culture of helping each other out, like the concept of a metal, where people would go around each other's houses and help them to bring in the crops. But I think, especially in we were so co-independent. I think in modern society, and I think it affects the whole mental health thing as well. That, you know, people are doing things much more in isolation, whether they realise, like some people could be in the same room together, but they're not really connecting. So the concept of just, you know, giving someone a dig out.
Absolutely. And one thing, because I know we're like jumping back and forth on different topics, but when we're talking about the mental health thing, one thing that is more and more, the more I do this, it comes to the forefront of my mind, is social media and mental health. I'm 32, so I can remember time before social media, and I remember like ringing my friends and being like, I'll be there at 3 o'clock, make sure you're there.
Queuing
and I go
to
into
use
town.
The phone.
Yes,
and
I do.
Hoping the person on the other side didn't have a queue on their side.
I swear to God, I was talking this at Christmas with my friends. I was like, we used to like, I'm from Waterford originally, and there's like a pizza place called Gino's, and we used to go there every Saturday, and we used to meet at like a phone box in the city centre.
No way.
3 o'clock, and I'd be like, girls,
like
if you're not, like literally, I was like, you better be there at 3 o'clock. And then it was like, if they weren't there at 3 o'clock, at 4:45, they'd be at another spot. So if you missed them at 3, you knew to go somewhere else for 4:45, and then we go get pizza. And I was like, what? Like, and now it's, you know, there's a culture that I'm learning about with social media with the younger guys, that like, you know, even down to like liking pictures and stuff. Like there's a whole scene that like, or I don't know how to put it into words. It's like a way of life. Like liking someone's picture means, you know, like kids where they're like, oh, she liked your picture, you know, so she fancies you now. You know what I mean? Like this, it's like a cultural thing.
Are people now valuing themselves in the number of likes? Do you think that's happening really?
Yeah, of course, absolutely, and it's something that like.
And do you think is liking, when someone likes something, is it like kind of positively correlated to the quality of the photograph?
No, really? Not at all. I don't think so. I mean, if you look at like social media culture, if you look, actually this Christmas, a lot of my friends have kids that my older friends, not that old just yet, but some of them have like 15 and 16-year-old kids, and they're like, you know, I'm like, what? That's your kids? Remember them when they were like in like a little school uniform, and now they're like, you know, loads of makeup, and there's that whole like
are they growing up and becoming? It's
kind of like the Kylie Jenner, you know, like.
It's a bit of a weird phrase, but like almost hypersexualized.
Hypersexualized.
At 15 years of age, they're dressing like as if they're. But that's kind of the modelling industry. A friend of mine was like, his sister was a model, like cover of Vogue type model.
Yeah.
and she told me that there's a lifespan. It's kind of like between 13 and 17, and that's kind of frightening. So that's not a new thing, but we're seeing it now that every young girl is starting to dress and act like this. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, it is. And like,
because of social media.
Yeah, because it's all about, getting likes and looking a certain way, and the way that they take photographs, it is hypersexualized.
So how is that affecting? Can you see any evidence right now of how it's affecting mental health positively or negatively, or what would your concerns be?
My concern would be, again, it's like it's kind of, it's hard to talk about it because like it doesn't directly affect me, but I know from speaking to people that are of that age that it's like putting up a photograph, it's the anxiety that goes with posting on social media, and like not looking good or get being popular. It's kind of like the schoolyard. Like it's kind of like what we would have experienced growing up in school before social media. They kind of have to.
But this is following you around 24/7.
Following you around,
thousands of people are
everyone has a camera phone, and something something embarrassing happened. If people had a camera phone around from when I was growing up, like I would dread to think of what the content that will be out there. But like everyone has a video phone. For me, social media and the internet and social platforms should be used for positive, and that's all it should be used for. And there's stuff like cyberbullying and that kind of culture that goes along with it. That's inevitable because there's always going to be a bad with everything. Everything that's good. That's something that worries me. You know what I mean? And like, one thing from doing the show, because I'm so, if you ever watch anything with MMA Connect, I'm very emotional when I like interview the guys, especially with the guys that I know the last couple of years, when they win, when they lose, and I sort of have created this kind of I don't want to say persona, because persona sounds like it's not quite real, but like where people feel that they can message me and they can like talk to me about things like maybe about martial arts if they're having some trouble, how would I do this, just general questions. But recently I done a talk, it's Tala Talks it was called, and it was basically
the mental health talks.
Mental health talks. Darren Dillon, Sandra Lynn Ruan invited me out to talk on the positive impact that MMA and training martial arts can have on someone in their mind, because they had heard about my story and how I went from bad experience at the end of.
Let's track back to that. So you mentioned at the end of the music career, and you kind of it lost its luster.
I was drinking every night. It was like taking drugs. I was like in a bad relationship. I wasn't exercising, wasn't eating healthily, wasn't doing anything. I got away with it for a long time when I was in the band because I was being creative, so my mind was constantly being stimulated. So I don't think it kind of caught up with me. But when that ended, I was doing nothing, and I was just and when I say drugs, I don't mean hard drugs. I mean I was taking prescription drugs. You know what I mean? I was taking prescription drugs to deal with anxiety and to deal with my mind, because.
And that's really interesting, and I gotta thank you for sharing that, because anxiety is a huge issue today. And resilience, I think one of the biggest challenges is we're not teaching young people how to cope with resilience.
100%.
Or how to be resilient. The Chumbawamba song, get knocked
down,
but I get up again. It's so true,
and that is the ethos of martial arts.
It's worse with all this bloody social media stuff, because you're getting instant positive or negative feedback, and if you're constantly getting bad feedback. So how did the sport then help you? How did it help you? Because you mentioned finding a focus.
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
did it help? What transformative effect did it have?
Well, immediately what it done was it gave me a focus, because I had somewhere to go every night when I started. I think after about 2-3 months I started training every day, and I was living in Dublin city centre at the time, and I started training in East Coast Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Dunleary. So I was getting a bus. I don't drive, so I was getting a bus out every night. It would take me an hour and a half to get out, and then it would take me an hour and a half to get home. And I was at this time I had gone back to work for the first time as well, which was a big shock to the system. Like, you're in a band for like 6 years, you're not working, there's no 9 to 5, and then suddenly you're at an office, and you're back in that system of working the 9 to 5. And I was just so depressed. I was like, what is there to live for? I was like, and it really was that bad. I was like I didn't feel that if I didn't have my creative outlet, like what I was used to. Like, who am I? I didn't know who I was. That was the thing. I was like, who am I? You know, what am I doing here? So I started like going training every night, and I would be gone from my house at 7 a.m, go to work, go straight to training, and I'd get home at 11:30. And this is someone who, you know, wouldn't have walked 5 minutes up the road, you know, previous to that. And I just got, it was so different. It kept my mind active, focused. I was meeting new people. I was being challenged in ways that I'd never been challenged before. And it stripped me of all my ego, because I walked into that martial arts academy and I was terrible. I was overweight. I couldn't do any of the moves. And you're training with these guys who've been training for years, and they're athletes, and you're training with them, and you just feel like, I felt terrible. And I was like, so many times I was at the door and I was like, I'm leaving, I'm not going.
Why did you stay?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
There must have been something driving you though.
The sport of jiu-jitsu.
Why didn't you just turn around and walk away? There must have been one thing that drove you to not abandon it.
I think, I don't know.
Why did you not give up?
I think that I saw the challenge that lay ahead, and I wanted to prove that I was worth something. Oh my God, am I going to start crying?
No, it's okay.
I honestly do think that I was like, I was something that was so alien to me, and I was like, I'm just gonna do this. I'm going to be good at something that's not destructive to me.
Amazing.
I think that's what it was.
And that's such good advice for young people to not give up, to figure out. And I think possibly the most difficult thing is figuring out what that's going to be. You didn't give yourself any favors by picking martial arts.
Yeah, I didn't at all, you know. And that's typical. I've never gone the easy way ever in my life. I always seem to pick the hard road, but I think that makes me who I am. You know what I mean? And the sport itself, jiu-jitsu, you know, like obviously it was a challenge, but it was. If you start, I think anyone who starts jiu-jitsu, if they last 3 months, they're hooked. And that's what happened to me. I got hooked with it. And every day I was going, my mind was getting better. I was thinking about things differently. It's so hard to explain jiu-jitsu, but the way it makes your mind work, and the way it makes you think about situations. You're going into a situation every day where you have to fight, and you're being put in really uncomfortable situations, and you have to figure out how to get out of them.
Yeah, there's nothing like being put into difficult situations and
you
having
can't
to figure
quit.
yourself out to figure out what resilience means.
Yeah, you can't quit. I mean, you can tap from a submission, and even that in itself is letting go of your ego and admitting to yourself, I can't get out of this, and if I don't tap, I'm going to get hurt. It's known when your body has had enough. It's known even
knowing when to ask for help, arguably.
Knowing when to ask for help, knowing when enough is enough, knowing you.
Do you think people get that in normal life? I mean, it's horrible. We're seeing so many suicides, and you've seen people put on Facebook, do this, do the other. But are people doing that? Are people being proactive offline enough to help each other out?
That's what I mean about social media, is that there's no connection with people anymore. I'm so lucky, and you're lucky as well, because we have friends that we have from before an internet time, so we know how to sit down and talk to someone and have a conversation. I worry that, you know, because so much is done online, do kids actually sit down and talk to each other about their feelings? And
a shout out actually to Paul Sheridan. He's a guy who helped raise a bit of money, and he's 16, 17 years of age, a startup founder. He's raised €122,000. I don't know if you caught that video. Check it out on Irish Startup TV. Get Reflex.
No, I will do
Reflex
that.
Gaming. But he said that, like, he basically, I said, you know, how do you deal with, you know, startups and stress and school and all the rest? And he says, just sometimes you got to have to switch off, go out with your mates and have the crack and just talk. He said, just talk. And I think, I know UCD, it was a terrible thing. They had a suicide a number of years ago, and after that they had a Just Talk campaign. But I always worry to what extent that if you don't create that culture, that it's all well good talking about it online, but, you know, maybe we should be doing more. Now I'm giving you the answer, that's terrible, but I wonder, should we be doing more to proactively knock around to someone's house if you haven't seen them for a while and invite them out? Or
one of the things that I spoke about when I was on the panel for Tal Talks was that when I was like, and when I say, I struggle with mental health just like everyone else does. The difference with it now is that I'm able to understand the thoughts that are in my head and the feelings that I have of anxiety or whatever it is. I'm able to process them properly. So if I get anxiety, I'm able to recognize what it is in my head and say, okay, why are you anxious? And then
So
I'm
you
like,
developed a coping strategy.
a coping strategy. I go, okay, why have you got anxiety? Oh yeah, it's that happened. Okay, well, what can you do to fix that? Nothing. Let it go. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of thing, being aware of the signs.
Is that a formula that's easy to replicate, or is it something that we all have to figure out our own way of doing it?
It's hard to say. I can only speak about my own experiences on it.
But it's good advice, because you said, you know, you should figure out what those thresholds are, and you said, you know, watch the signs. So
I think being able to recognize the signs, I think, is like super important. But one thing that when I was talking about my own experiences on that panel was, I was saying that when I would get really upset, or you know, and I've like things would get on top of me, and I'd be like, oh God, like you know, and I just want crying and the whole lot, and I would just want to talk to someone. And the one thing that I found the hardest was that I could never pick up the phone to anyone because I didn't want to burden anyone with I felt like it was a very me thing, like I'm upset, this is wrong with me, and I was like, I love my friends, I don't want them to have to listen to me going on about something stupid that's happened to me, you know what I mean? And that's something that I have had to, you know, change that way of thinking, is that you have to ring your friends and say, I'm having a really bad day today and I need to have a cry on the phone to you, you know. And I think it's easy for girls to do that. I think it's a little bit harder for guys to do that. And the older that I get, you know, the more I kind of am able to understand thoughts and feelings and opening up and stuff a little bit more and dealing with things a little bit better. So
sport definitely helps you to
of course, like
get that journey started.
Sport will help your mind regardless of your situation, because your body needs to physically exercise to release, you know, just to release for your body to work. And I don't know all the like technical terms, you know, but you need to exercise. That's just the way it is. You know, there's the note to it is about your mind, and your body needs you to physically exercise, you know, and needs you to eat well and to fuel your body properly, you know.
With this English teacher, he was kind of like an amateur psychologist, and he had this great, I learned so much about psychology from him. But he talked about the concept of baseline. He drew like a graph, and I have a friend as well, he's a medic, and it's funny, he talks about this concept of baseline, where you figure out like what is your normal operating standard, and then you know, if you're above the curve or below the curve, ultimately you kind of have to come back to that flat line. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned before as well, in the music industry, it's like, I can only imagine it's partying and it's great old crack, and suddenly you find yourself working in the bank or whatever, and it's just like dead. So I guess we got to figure out how do we manage those highs and lows, and that goes back to that developing our coping strategies. Yeah,
absolutely. And for me, jiu-jitsu will always bring me back down. So if I
is that the ego thing again?
It's the ego. I don't have an ego. Well, I obviously do have. Everyone has an ego, but I don't have a negative ego like I did when I was in the band, because you need to have an ego to be on stage. Absolutely. And to perform, because it's a weird thing where it's almost like you don't feel like it's enough to just go out and just be, you know, Lydia.
It's a problem in Ireland, because like I was in the US a few years ago, and I discovered that quite often when I'd speak publicly, I kind of go, and I realised that when you stop and you're speaking in front of 500 people, and you breathe and you speak slowly, it's like as if time is standing still. Yeah. And unless you sort of learn how to find your voice and back yourself, you're just going to come across as being a little mouse. Yeah. Yeah. And being able to be aware of these things is super important. So you do need an ego, and it's so difficult to find that balance between kind of, I'm great and I'm awesome. Yeah. And I don't know if you can even see that subtle tone and difference.
No, and it's really funny that you mention it, because that's one thing that when I go to the shows and I meet all these people that watch MMA Connect TV, and they always say to me like, oh, like, you're so normal, you're so cool, you know, you like, it's so great that, like, you know, you like take pictures with us. And like I when a kid comes up to me at a show and they're like, oh, I love the show and stuff, like I talk to them, You know, I find out, I ask them, like, oh, do you do martial arts? You know, what do you do?
So you've kind of created this presence that the kids look up to you like you're some kind of god, but then you you don't see yourself like that. But I've just brought it out of you. That's exactly my point. It's that it's all about the context, and it's that somebody sees you as an expert in this space, but you kind of almost say, no, if you're on brand, I'm only Lydia.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like, yeah. I would never say, like, yes, I'm an expert in.
So when kids are coming up to you at a show and they're looking for a photograph, it evidences that you've obviously, you know, created some kind of a following. But at the same time, you know, when I meet you personally, right now, it's very clear that you still feel almost embarrassed by that following that you have.
Yeah, I'm not embarrassed by it. Not embarrassed would be the wrong word, but I sometimes, yeah, maybe it's embarrassed a little bit. I just sometimes feel that like, I'm like, you know, when they get a little bit, some kids get like, you know, they kind of like shake and stuff, you know.
Really?
Yeah, when they're like, you know, oh, I saw this interview that you done. A lot of them think that I'm like best friends with Conor McGregor. I hang out with him every night, you know. They're like, oh, well, you know, what's he like?
So going back to the social media, that's another issue with social media, that like I'll post a photograph and someone will go, oh, you have an amazing lifestyle. It just so happens that I lash up a photograph shot in a particular way that looks good.
Yeah.
But, you know, and then I go back and I'm kind of like, oh, life is terrible. It's like Casey Neistat was talking about this the other day about YouTubers having these happy personalities, because when we perform as creators, we're certainly attempting to show the very best. Yeah. And, you know, that can, I guess, create
and that's definitely true reality. Because
nothing like, you know, the Jenners or whatever, the Kardashians
has
taken it to a whole other level.
Exactly.
But it is an issue.
It is, and the whole premise of me doing this is to show the positive benefits of martial arts on a person, and to show the spirit and the great community that MMA has in Ireland especially. And I'm very conscious about being positive in how I do interviews, and not even stuff that I put out online, not to be negative, and to be equal in everything that I do and support everyone regardless of who they are, where they come from, what team they're in, you know, what their thoughts. I judge people on who they are as people, if they're good people.
Yeah, that's really important, because people talk about the value and the ethics of journalism, and it's argued that if people are coming in as kind of citizen journalists, or I don't know, creators, like I think there's a lot of skepticism, certainly in Ireland, about YouTube and YouTubers. Yeah. But the reality of it is, YouTubers are getting, some YouTubers like Tweety Boy has got 50 million. It's like 10 times the population of Ireland as followers. That so YouTube culture that's a huge responsibility, that you know, you do show a balanced story, and that you don't show your version of the truth, which is not maybe the truth. Exactly. But a lot of people aren't doing that, and I think that that's creating a problem, that kids are growing up and they're seeing that, oh, if I'm not getting likes, so I'm not, like, you know, what's going on, how, you know, my life seems horrible by comparison to this person's life. And
it's true, and it's a bit of a battle. The more that I do and the bigger that the show gets, the more I battle with it, because I have this, like, when I do the show, I'm like positive and happy and smiling. When I go actually out to the shows to film, I'm the same. When I meet people for the first time, I'm happy and bubbly, high energy. But then there's so much that's going on behind the scenes with, like, different things. There's politics involved in everything, and I almost sort of have kind of it's like this weird thing where I was like, am I being, like, you know, I feel like I have to be positive and happy. Do you know what I mean? Maybe when I'm not, maybe when I'm just like, you know, I just want to not be switched on, you know. But that's not anything to do with my work, or that's just me as a person, you know what I mean? I feel like it is difficult to find that creative energy, but I think the thing is, probably as a lesson that we may all need to think about this, is that especially for the younger crew coming through, it's important that we don't look at social media content and define ourselves and define our success or failure. We have to establish, going back to that point of baseline, what success is for us, and then we're not looking over, you know, it's almost like the old thing of looking at the Joneses and the grass is green on the other side. These are kind of proverbs that, you know, predated social media. Yeah, exactly. You know, and there was a time where I had to kind of talk to myself, and I was like, you know, putting up like selfies, and you know, where like I looked good, like I had makeup on, and like I was dressed, and I was like, that's not real. I was like, that's not real.
So how do you build a brand? How do you build a brand then around, and this is another tip for a creator, what are the first steps in building a brand around yourself or around your niche?
I think like honesty. You have to be honest with what you're doing.
So the authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely, and it has to be real, and it has to be the best thing about using social media to promote your brand or to build publicity is that you can use it to show people what you do. So it shouldn't be fake. It shouldn't be put on. It should just be an actual snapshot of real life, and that's why. I think it shows
authenticity is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of businesses, because like my day job is like marketing, social media, and publicity. You know, and I still have to work a day job. That's a big misconception. People think I'm off filming every week.
So what is because you mentioned BAMA. So what is the relationship between MMA and reality? Does MMA Connect TV? Does that make money?
Not at the moment. No, we work for free. You know, so we do, obviously we have sponsorship and advertising at certain points. You know, one of the first sponsorships that we done was with a company called Armbar Fightwear, and they were a startup, and they see they're like a fightwear apparel and stuff, and they were starting out. They had no money, and I was like, okay, well, let's work together. I'll promote your brand through MMA Connect TV. Like at the start of our videos, we'll put your logo, and then they were like, well, we don't have money, you know, we're a startup. And I said, okay, so what can you give us? And they were like, well, we can do MMA Connect TV t-shirts.
Okay.
So we had this kind of like, you know, they would give us t-shirts and we would promote the brand online, you know, and they got me a very cool, like, customized Lydia t-shirt. So that's kind of what we do, you know. So there's no, like, none of my team gets paid. They all do it because they love it.
If you had a magic wand, where would you like to go?
I would like MMA Connect TV to get broadcasting, TV broadcasting, and for me personally, I would like to do documentaries. I would like to do TV shows, you know.
And where would you like to be? Because for me, I'm learning a lot of the nomenclature. Like what's the terminology? Like someone said to me the other day, I'm like, I don't know, I do it all. So I didn't realise there's no.
I know, and someone said
what's the end of the movie? There's like 20 people involved.
Exactly.
You mentioned the documentary filmmaking.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in this because I want to do it too.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, you've got a camera, so someone's got to operate the camera, and there's sound, and then someone's got to direct, and then producing seems to be like organising the whole thing. If you're a producer and I haven't explained that properly, shoot me an email and we'll do an interview. We'll explain it better. Roughly, where would you like to be in the documentary area? Like, do you want to be behind the camera, in front of the camera?
In front of the camera, yeah. I don't have.
So you want to do like kind of presenting?
Yeah, presenting. I mean, it's kind of. I have at the moment. I've been speaking to these like production companies, like just about how MMA Connect TV can find a place in what they do. And when a lot of them come back to me and say, well, what's the, you know, what do you want to achieve by bringing MMA to main screen or main daytime TV or nighttime TV or whatever it is, broadcasting? And it's like, I want to show people the sport. I want to show people the benefits, the positive aspects, how it helps people. And one of the ideas that I had was about doing, well, should I be giving my ideas away?
Well, it's a funny thing about ideas. The reality of it is ideas are two a penny, and it's all about execution at the end of the day.
Yeah. And
bringing your own style and your own personality into the project.
Absolutely, and I was talking about this yesterday. I was sparring, MMA sparring, and the coach at the gym was talking to me about saying about talking about other media outlets. I think they're kind of copying your style, or they're trying to like do what you were doing. And then he was talking about himself, where like his own promoting his shows and fighters and stuff, and we were just kind of bouncing like this conversation off one another. And I said, but it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. I just want to focus on myself and what I feel. The magic is in my head. You know what I mean?
The best example in the world's got to be Pepsi and Coca-Cola.
There you go.
There's Pepsi drinkers and the Coca-Cola drinkers.
There you are.
You just got to work hard enough.
Exactly, and I like the way I look at it is I'll just continue to do what I do, create all this content, create the ideas, put them out there, and if people enjoy them, people enjoy them. You know, there's room for everyone. In everything that you do, there's room for everyone, you know, and that's an important thing to remember, because you can get a little bit lost in that, where you can get sucked into what are other people doing, and you can let that negative kind of mindset affect you. And once you start caring what other people think of you, or you start caring about what other people are doing in any capacity in life, then you're screwed, you know what I mean? So I just keep my head down, I keep focused, and sometimes I go off the track, sometimes I lose it, and I kind of have to pull myself back in and go, okay, you messed up there, or you shouldn't have done that, you should have put that out, you should have said that, you should have,
it goes back to the coping strategies and the resilience.
Exactly, you know, and I just sometimes have to kind of sit back and say, okay, this is all new to you, you know, this is, nobody guides me, this is the hardest thing that I've had to deal with, is that I can't go to someone for advice or help.
Well, it's difficult when you're pioneering in a vertical as well.
Yeah, exactly, you know, and what we do at MMA Connect TV is, I don't believe that anyone is doing what we do in the terms of how we deliver a show, how we deliver an interview. You know, my style, because I don't have a journalism background, I'm sure I annoy a lot of, you know, respected journalists.
That's a good thing, if you're annoying journalists, because then you're on
I don't know, I like to just annoy nobody.
If the reality of it is, if people are talking about you, you're on the radar.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's not such a bad thing anyway.
I guess, you know, no such thing as bad publicity is, like, you know, the age-old saying and stuff. But
there's definitely a balance of these things.
There definitely is,
it's really positive. Again,
Yeah.
you've gone from not having a background into this space to bringing a passion and an interest, and invariably you're bringing something that's unique and cool to the market. So
I think with the age of technology, and go back to social again, you know, people can kind of cheat the system a little bit.
Absolutely.
And once you're creative, and once you have a good idea, and once you're passionate about what you do, you can be successful, you know, and that's really important.
So I think on that note, Lydia Donelan, thank you so much, and best of luck with MMA
Thank you so
TV.
much. Thank
and
you
we're
for
looking
having
forward to absolutely, and we're looking forward to seeing some documentaries coming out.
Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, so if any production houses out there want to get in touch,
Amazing.
in touch.
There you go. Links below. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thank you.